Hello and welcome to another episode of Odds and Ends. In this episode, we'll talk about donkey domestication. This paper is by Dr. Brigida Karin Kimura of Santa Fe College. It will be this paper that we're referencing throughout this entire episode. Animal domestication is a widespread economic and social change that happened during the Holocene era. A great many of the animals domesticated were used for carrying goods and services, such as farm work and carrying goods, such as what happens with pack animals. And when I say pack animals, I don't mean animals that live in packs, but animals that are used to carry packages. The hardiest known transport animals in Africa and the Near East are donkeys. Donkeys were domesticated in that region and are particularly suited for mountainous transport, as well as arid regions, and are still to this day an important resource in many regions. Various speculations on the origins of the donkey remain to be argued. One such, papered by Dr. Epstein and Mason in 1971, suggested that the Asian onager was the ancestor of the domesticated donkey, but it's now accepted that the African wild ass is the ancestor of the donkey, based on the work by Dr. Beja-Pereira in 2004. After domestication, however, wild onagers were later bred with domesticated donkey in some regions of Western Asia. All genetic evidence seems to point to donkeys being domesticated in northeastern Africa, based on the current genetic evidence we have available. Archaeological, historic, and ethnographic sources indicate that at least 3 distinct groups of wild donkeys existed in Africa 2,000 years ago, of which only 2 survive into modern days. One is the Somali wild ass, and is distinguished by its large size and striped legs, and is critically endangered, but at this point can still be found within Somalia, Ethiopia, and Eritrea. The Nubian wild ass has a permanent shoulder cross and was found in northern Sudan and Eritrea in the 19th century. Very few animals have been seen in recent years, and these populations have been feared to be extinct. The last species is the Atlas wild ass, which is only known from rock engravings and mosaics. This species is known to have both a shoulder cross and striped legs. It became extinct likely in ancient Rome. Based on paleontological and archaeological finds, the ancient distribution of the African wild ass spanned all across the northeastern part of Africa at least 20,000 years ago, and that distribution may have extended to Yemen and the Levant. The reason why species may have been domesticated is because, unlike the early large cattle that were domesticated for transport and milking, as seen by the work by Dr. Loth and Dr. Mussolini, in the desert conditions of Africa, wandering shepherds had to frequently wander to different locations to sustain themselves, and cattle are not ideal for transporting materials under arid conditions, as they require a substantial amount of water at least every other day. Wild donkeys, or wild asses, on the other hand, are adapted to hot, harsh environments, and most importantly do not ruminate, so they can keep on moving much easier, making them well suited for the desert environment for transportation of materials, especially during eras where unpredictable rainfall and desertification was a distinct reality. In modern days, donkeys are normally kept in low numbers and are rarely eaten, and based on textual evidence, it was that way in the past as well. As a consequence, very few archaeological remains exist to study the process of domestication. The initial thought was that smaller size indicates domestication, and this led to the dating of domestication to be between 4,800 BC and 4,500 BC, whilst others dated back to 4000 BC and 3500 BC. The genetic data does not support this claim, however. Utilizing mitochondrial DNA haploid groups, it was found that it's likely that donkeys were domesticated twice, or that domesticated donkeys were crossbred of wild donkeys quite frequently in different parts of the world. Based on later finds in terms of small donkey, the earliest known dates we can go with is between 7,000 and 6,000 years ago. Domesticated donkeys were also available in the Levant by approximately 3000 BC. In a dig site in the Levant, African wild asses, or early forms of domesticated donkey, have also been identified in the site of Ash Shama in Yemen, and they date back about 6500 BC. Evidence of animals carrying materials, as found in what could be described as strain-induced spondylitis, or a damaged spine, has been found in a dig site that dates back to 3000 BC, although they retain the morphological signature of the African wild ass. This may indicate that what was once defined as an African wild ass may have been an early domesticated donkey. Other studies, based around ethnographic research, has found breeding between donkeys and their wild ancestors, with Maasai women often noting that sometimes their domesticated donkey run off to mate with wild donkey. It seems to be a common feature in both the Wasa tribe, the Maasai tribe, and several other groups within Ethiopia, where those that raise donkeys allow for crossbreeding between both populations. There's also historical and ethnographic records of people in Sudan and Eritrea actively encouraging female donkeys to breed with wild asses, a practice that continued as recently as the 20th century. Based on current genetic evidence, there's at least 2 examples of African wild ass, specifically 2 subspecies such as the Nubian wild ass and the Somali wild ass. By using mitochondrial DNA, they were able to derive 2 clades of donkey, clade 1 and clade 2. Based on his research, clade 1 was likely bred from the Nubian wild ass, or has the majority of its DNA from that subspecies, while clade 2 is derived from the Somali wild ass. Later research found that the Somali wild ass could not be the ancestor of clade 2 because 12 mutations separate the Somali wild ass and clade 2. This led to 3 possibilities. The wild ass of Yemen was a possible genetic contributor to this population. The Atlas wild ass was another genetic possibility, and a third possibility is that there was once another subspecies that is now extinct. Based on all genetic evidence, we cannot confirm any of these hypotheses, although we can confirm that clade 1 is derived mostly from, or entirely from, the Nubian wild ass. Based on current genetic evidence, it was also concluded that the likely center of origin for the domestication of the donkey was likely Yemen. It was initially thought that it could be Saudi Arabia, but due to the fact that the populations of Saudi Arabia have the lowest level of genetic diversity, it's not very likely that that's the case. And that about covers everything. Thank you for watching.